I'm aligning my table saw, and I'm using the method of sliding a square in the miter slot. I discovered with using this method that the back of the blade was a little further away from the line of the miter slot than the front of the blade. There's generally 4 bolts, there's 4 bolts on mine that are holding the trunnions in the front and the back of the blade to the bottom of the cast iron table saw top. I loosened the back ones and I kept muscling the back of the blade. I tried hitting it with a mallet. I lifted the motor and tried to shake and jiggle it further away from the center line of the saw. And I think I achieved good results. I marked 2 of the teeth, and for this mark I used the square. And if I just run the blade past the edge of the square, if you listen carefully, you can tell that the edge of the tooth is just nicking the edge of the square. And if I rotate it back this way and we do the same thing, I don't know how well you can hear that. It is rubbing it, just barely hitting it. Not quite as prominently as it did in the front, but it is touching it, and I think I'm within perhaps a mil or two, a thousandth of an inch. Using this square, I used the same trick on a different tooth. I figured I wouldn't hurt to try 2 different teeth just to make sure. And it's the same thing. If I wiggle it over here, it just touches. And the same thing back here. And actually I'm pressing on it a little bit with both of them with my fingers to illustrate the point. I'm not sure the actual rubbing would be heard on the camera if I didn't touch it a little bit. I tried measuring it with a caliper. The problem is with the calipers, whether you're pushing or pinching, this blade can deflect, many thousandths of an inch depending on how much you're leaning on it. So I don't think this is a good way to do it. I don't have a dial indicator. That might be another good way to do it. But I do believe using this square method and very carefully rubbing it against particular teeth is a very good way to do it. I was at a second-hand tool store and I purchased this dial indicator. Paid less than $20 for it. I don't know if that's a good price. And you can see I crudely mounted it to this stick, and I thought I would try to use it to measure the runout on my table saw blade. I was too lazy to take the fence off my miter gauge, so I simply put a piece of plywood in here and clamped it in place. Clamped to the board, I have a little bit of play in my miter slot, but as I slide it up and back, you can see that the needle jumps around a little bit, but generally stays within the range of motion of the play in the miter slot. So I think I have this blade pretty parallel to the miter slot.